We're already starting to see, I think, the beginnings of high-frequency company formation. By that I mean companies that are set up by computers and that based on an algorithm. I mean, for a while we've had it so that companies would be set up, if you like, after the deal has been dreamt up, in order to have the most efficient structure, whether that's for tax or for regulation, for in financial industry to do with where the assets lie, and so on. But now we're starting to hear about use of computers and use of computer programs to do this automatically. And once you do that, then we're in a whole different realm. It's a question of, a company could be set up in seconds and disappear, the next day, for example. And once you go down that route, we've seen where that goes in terms of trading, where it becomes less and less time in order to execute the deal, and in terms of monitoring it, becomes very difficult. Global Witness did an investigation recently into money laundering, and they found out that companies have been set up where the people behind them had actually been dead by the time the company had been formed. The use of offshore jurisdictions has increased quite significantly over the past decade. They're used for a number of reasons, partly for tax benefits, partly for secrecy, and that they allow corporate networks to be built that have significant parts of the chain which are hidden from public view. And this is a problem both for understanding the companies and also for being able to understand the nature of them, the structure of them. That concept of a company being something bricks and mortar, or even being a headquarters which had a dozen or 30 or 40 subsidiaries, one for each territory operated in, that's very much a thing of the past. When the Bank of International Settlement did a report on Lehman Brothers after it had closed, it found out that far from the 200 or 300 subsidiaries it reported to the US Securities and Exchange Commission, it actually had 2,985 different legal entities in the group. We're now looking Open Corporates, which is the largest open database of companies in the world, with nearly 50 million companies. We're now looking at corporate structures. We're now looking at hierarchies, shareholdings, ownership, subsidiary information. And you're already starting to see some quite interesting things. Companies that own subsidiaries, 10% here, 15% there, 20% there, and so on. We know of companies where there are circular relationships, where a parent owns a subsidiary, and that subsidiary owns part of the parent. And these things are really difficult to understand, difficult to map, but also the question is why? If the rules are such that there's a benefit to doing this, then I think we probably have the rules wrong as well. One of the interesting things is, I think, is how offshore countries compete with each other. Often they're looking for what advantage they can get. Can they pass some new laws in terms of to make them more attractive to clients, essentially? And this is a problem because it just ends up in a race to the bottom, where everybody's trying to make it so that they only have one customer, which those people that are registering them, not the wider interests of society. So I think that if we're going to tackle this, we need to have those countries that are dedicated to democracy, dedicated to good business, good governance. They need to crack down on some of these jurisdictions who basically have a business model which is about letting companies get away with anything. I think corporate transparency is absolutely critical, not just because it allows us to understand who we're buying goods for or who we're working for, but also because it provides good incentives for tackling some of these things. And that way we can draw a distinction between those companies that have got simple, straightforward structures that are transparent, and those that are deliberately complex. And I think that we should, increasingly consider those companies that are have complex, convoluted, and opaque structures, based in secrecy jurisdictions, to be something that, to have a question mark against them, have a question mark about whether we want to do business with them, have a question mark about whether they should get insurance for their credit, whether they're good risk, for example. And I think that by increasing corporate transparency and by company registers doing what they were originally set out to do, which is to be public records of the creation and the existence of companies, then I think that would go a long way to solving some of these negative aspects of the global corporate world. We're about providing a benefit for everybody, for NGOs, for anti-corruption investigators, for journalists, and for other companies to be able to improve their understanding of the corporate world. I wouldn't really consider myself to be a hacker. I'm more someone that's interested in solving problems and removing some of those issues that bedevil the corporate world. When you're in business, you know who your competitors' suppliers are. And so there's very little from a competitive advantage to keeping that supply chain secret. But actually, if you have a good supply chain and you pay above the bare minimum, and you make sure that you don't employ child labour and that your working conditions are good, then actually I think there's a benefit to being public on that. And then that passes the question to the other companies, to your competitors, to go to the question of, okay, now what about you? Are you similarly, a good corporate citizen as far as your supply chain goes?